Okay, in section 3.4, what we're going to be doing is solving more equations, but this time it's going to take more than one step to do it. So the first example here, what we're going to be doing is trying to solve for x. And what we want to first do when we try and solve for an equation like this is our whole goal is to try and isolate the x term by itself. So we see that we have 8x take away 11 equals 5. So the first thing we'll do is we will add to both sides of this equation 11. And that's the opposite of subtracting 11 would be adding 11. So what will happen is the negative 11 on the left side is just going to disappear. Whatever we do to one side, we do to the other side. And now we go ahead and calculate this. So the 11's cancel here. We're left with the 8x equals, and then we have to do 5 plus 11, which is 16. So now we have the x term by itself. Now what we want to do is get a coefficient of 1 in front of the x. So we want to get rid of the 8. So to get rid of 8 times x, we have to come through and divide by 8 on both sides of the equation. Now 8 divided by 8 is 1, so we get 1x equals 16 divided by 8, which is 2, and that's the same as saying x is equal to 2. Okay, we've done a problem like that before, so nothing real different there. Next problem, same thing. We're trying to get the t over 4 term by itself. So what we want to do is we want to add 14 to both sides. And when we do that, the 14s will go away here. On the left-hand side, we have to do negative 16 plus 14, which gives us negative 2. We still have t divided by 4 here. So now what we want to do is get the t by itself. So we don't want it to be divided by 4. So what we do is we come in and we, instead of dividing by 4, we'll do the opposite of that, which is multiplying both sides by 4 over 1. Multiply this side by 4 over 1. And just remember that negative 2 is the same as negative 2 over 1. So on the right-hand side, what happens is these 4's cancel out and we're just left with t. And on the left-hand side, we multiply straight across. Negative 8 over 1 times 1, which is 1. So we can just write that as negative 8 equals t. Okay, so a big difference between these two problems. In the first problem, we had 8 in front of x, so we divided both sides by 8. On the other problem, we had t divided by 4, so we multiplied both sides by 4. So you're always going to do the opposite of whatever's happening there. Okay, I'll give you a chance to pause the video and work these out. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and work them out. So here we're trying to get the minus 14c by itself, so I'm going to subtract 12 on both sides. Okay, negative 16 take away 12 is negative 28. These 12's cancel. We're left with negative 14c. Now we want to get rid of that negative 14 in front that's being multiplied, so we divide by negative 14 on both sides. And we get this to go away. We get c here, and then that's going to be positive 2. Negative divided by negative is positive. Okay, on this one, we want to subtract 8 on both sides. We'll get negative p by itself. Notice there was a negative there in front. Those 8's cancel. And over here we get 20 take away 8, which is 12. And one last step. We want to get rid of this negative in front of the p. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. And that will have the effect of a negative over negative on the left side being positive. And then 12 divided by negative 1 is negative 12. Okay, now let's see what happens when our variable appears on both sides of the equal sign. So notice that we have a 9x here and we have a 4x here. What we want to do is get all of our x's by themselves on one side of the equation. So this is where you get to choose. You can try and get your x's or your variable on the left side of the equation, or you can try and get it on the right side. So let's just go with a kind of rule of thumb here that we're going to just try and get things on the x's on the left side. So what I need to do here is to get rid of 4x that's on the left here. I need to subtract 4x and then subtract 4x on the left. So let me do that on both sides. So 9x take away 4x, that's 5x. We still have minus 16. equals, these 4x's go away, and I'm left with 14. And that problem now looks exactly like the problems we just did before. We're going to try and get this 5x term by itself. So we add 16 to both sides. 16's go away, we have 5x. And then 14 plus 16 is going to give us 30. And now what we want to do is get rid of the 5, so we divide both sides by 5. 5's cancel, we get x equals 6. Alright, next one. Give you an opportunity to do that one yourself. Okay, so we have negative 2p and we have 5p. So let's just go with the same rule of thumb. We're going to try and get everything on the left. So I'm going to subtract 5p here, subtract 5p here. Let's see what happens. So we still have a 4. We're going to have negative 2p take away 5p, that's negative 7p, equals, on this side the p's cancel, we get negative 3. Now we're trying to get this negative 7p by itself, so I'm going to have to come in here and subtract 4 here, and subtract 4 here, and the 4's go away, so I'm left with negative 7p equals negative 7. And still one more step, I've got to get that negative sign, the negative 7 out of there. So divide by negative 7, divide by negative 7. You know what, I don't know why I put a 7 there. Oh yeah, it is negative 7. Sorry, it is negative 7. Now these 7's go away, you're left with p, and then here negative 7 divided by negative 7 is positive 1. Okay, so what happens if we're just kind of adding more and more difficulty to these problems? How about if our variable appears on both sides? See, it's here and it's here, but we also have parentheses or brackets. Well, here we're going to use the distributive property first. So we're going to get rid of this parenthesis by multiplying a 4 through, like this. It gives us 4x plus 20. Now we still had a minus 3 there. Then equals, and on this side I'm going to distribute a negative 2 through the parenthesis there. So I have negative 7 minus 2x, and then plus 6. Be careful on that plus 6. It's negative 2 times negative 3. That gives you positive 6. Now we're pretty much where we were before, but we're going to do one more step before we actually try and move the x's over. I'm going to combine any like terms together. So notice I can do 20 minus 3 and get 17 here. And on the right side, notice that I can put the negative 7 and the 6 together. That gives me negative 1 and then minus 2x. Alright, next step. Let's try and get these x terms all on one side, right? So I want those on one side. So I'm going to just try and move them to the left. So I'm going to add 2x here, add 2x here. That'll give us 6x plus 17 equals negative 1, and then the 2x's went away. Okay, getting closer now. Let's subtract 17 on both sides. That'll get that 6x by itself. 17's cancel. And that gives us negative 18. Be careful there, we're subtracting, we're not multiplying there, so it will stay negative. So negative 1 take away 17 is negative 18. And then finally, let's divide both sides by 6. And when we do that, the 6's go away. I just get x equals, and then on the right side, negative 18 divided by 6 is negative 3. Okay. So why don't you see if you can work through this one? Pause the video here. Okay. Let me work through this. So same thing, distribute first. It gives me a negative 11y. Be careful here, plus 22. Plus 6y, then equals, distribute the 3 through, 3y, plus 12, and we still had a plus 2 there. Let's combine like terms. Notice that I can put the 6y together with the negative 11y. That should give you negative 5y. We still have plus 22, equals 3y plus 14, because I can put the 12 and the 2 together. And now let's get my y's on the left side. So I'm going to subtract 3y, subtract 3y. On the right side it goes away. Over here we get negative 8y plus 22 equals 14. And now I need to get rid of that 22. So let's subtract 22, subtract 22. Goes away, you get negative 8y equals, and then over here you're going to have negative 8. Last step, let's divide by negative 8 to get rid of that negative 8 that's being multiplied in front of the y. They'll cancel. Over here we get positive 1, so we get y equals positive 1. Okay, that is pretty much it for this section. You're just going to need to go practice, do your homework, and let me know if you have any questions.